and good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this last day of October. It is a beautiful day right here in Brisbane. It is 26 degrees and sunny. And what a big weekend this has been. You know, after the pandemic, I think Brisbane is right now hyped with activities. There's so much that's happening out there. I mean, we can't be at every place, but, we try and get to as many functions and events as we can. And as the saying goes, that we can only be at two places at the same time, not three. So once again, wonderful to have your company on this Monday, the 31st of October, last day of October 2022, 26 degrees and sunny in Brisbane. Let's get on with the news. Then we have our daily India report, and of course with the finishing off with the daily India report and functions and events. Well, right now, with everything that's happening around, the Treasurer saying, don't be too optimistic. We are in for tough times.
Speaker, Australians know that there are hard days to come and hard decisions to accompany them.
Yes, and the very next day we got a reminder of that. The Bureau of Statistics released the September quarter inflation number, 7.3%. The budget papers predicted that inflation would peak at 7.75% in the quarter we're in now and would be 5.75% on average for this financial year. They also put wages growth at 3.75% for the year. So that means another 12 months of declining real wages, that is, after inflation. But essentials inflation, that is, price rises for stuff we have to buy, is much higher than that, 8.4%, not 7.3%. So wages growth could be 4 or 5% below the increase in prices of things we have to buy. But anyway, they usually get these forecasts wrong. Everybody does, really. And they get forecasts of wages growth even more wrong. So anything could happen, and probably will. But what the budget papers don't include in a forecast of declining real wages is the increase in mortgage repayments, already the fastest and biggest in history. Here are the cash rate forecasts of the big four banks and what they mean for mortgage repayments. If ANZ and Westpac are right, then families are up for an extra $1,000 to $2,000 a month. And even CBA's lower forecast means an extra $800 to $1,600 per month. So yes, Treasurer, there are hard days to come. So how are you going, reconciling the two political slogans of the month, cost of living relief and budget repair?
Budget repairs by the looks of it. And right now, ladies and gentlemen, moving on, let's go to Victoria, where the fight for the outer suburbs is happening in the upcoming election. Let's see from this report.
The outer suburbs could be where this state election is won or lost. Labor saw swings against the party in this year's federal election in many outer suburban seats. So let's take a look at what the major parties are offering those living outside the city. Transport is a key issue for Victorians living in the outer suburbs. Labor's promised to build a train station in Keilor East to connect the suburb to the airport rail link, upgrade the railway stations at Melbourne and Sunshine and increase capacity, and remove every level crossing on the Frankston, Melton and Werribee train lines by 2030. The coalitions promised to extend the Frankston and Cranbourne train lines, cap public transport fares across Melbourne to $2 a day and halve V-line fares. It would also look at extending tram lines to Bayswater and Ferntree Gully. Labor's also pledged to build or upgrade 4 hospitals in the outer suburbs, including in Ringwood and Epping, build 50 low-fee state-run childcare centres in areas where there's a shortage, and open 23 new schools in outer suburban Melbourne, including 2 in Tarneet. The coalitions also pledged to build or upgrade 5 hospitals in the outer suburbs, including in Wantirna and Werribee, to spend $1.5 billion to upgrade roads in the west and reverse what it's called the tradies tax by axing registration fee hikes on building companies.
So with all of that happening, what is the opposition pledging? Opposition is pledging free lunches.
There is such a thing as a free lunch at Matthew Guy's house.
Who's hungry?
The opposition leader promising every public school student from prep to year 12 would get a free healthy lunch by 2026 if he becomes Premier.
Great.
It saves time for parents, cost, and of course, it is healthy.
The program would be trialled for 2 years at selected public schools, and Catholic and independent schools could choose to take part.
That will be a savings of about $5,000 per year to a family.
We know that there are families who are choosing not to buy clothes or not to turn their lights on so that they can send their kids to school with food to eat.
The lunches would be assessed by nutritionists, and parents would be able to opt in and choose the meals on an app.
Even with just the 3, it is a big dreaded task that we have to do.
Sunshine mum Jenny says she'd save hours every week if her kids had their lunches provided.
It would be time, it would be money, it would be a lot of less having to think.
These are the very same people who cancelled a program called Free Fruit Friday, used to operate in all of our schools.
The Premier questioning whether the $300 million promised by the Coalition would be enough to pay for the program, while marking construction on the airport rail link at St Albans.
Works have started in earnest, relocating services, relocating some of these high voltage towers.
It will enable the construction of a new rail bridge between the Western Ring Road and the Albion-Jacana freight corridor.
The long-awaited airport rail isn't expected to be finished until 2029. Bridget Willison, ABC.
So there you go. Whenever there's an election, in the election mode, all this kind of name-calling slaying starts. Well, right now, let's look at what our Education Minister has to say on NAPLAN. Of course, we know that the standard of education today is not what it used to be before, because changing times, there's new types of things that kids need to learn these days. But are they getting smarter? Where is our education headed?
Generally speaking, are you happy with the broad outcome of NAPLAN this year?
Yeah, it's better than I expected. This is the first NAPLAN since those big lockdowns in Melbourne and Sydney last year. And there were some pretty horrific predictions about what that would mean. That hasn't transpired. I think that's a tribute to the incredible work that teachers and parents and students did. We've seen pretty stable results across most of the categories. There are some examples, particularly in Year 9, where we've seen a tapering off. That's obviously of concern. I think that's part of that is COVID. But NAPLAN tells us what's happening. It doesn't tell us why. I think we need to drill deeper to understand what's happened there.
OK, you talk about Year 9, and one of the downsides of this report showing Year 9 boys, their reading standards have dropped quite a bit. Is it just COVID there?
Well, it's boys and girls. If you have a look at the data, we're seeing a bit of a tapering off for boys and girls in reading and maths over the course of the last 3 years or so. Over the course of 14 years, it's pretty stable, but over the last 3 years or so, we've seen a drop. That's why I say it may be COVID. But NAPLAN doesn't give us the answer to that. NAPLAN doesn't measure everything. It doesn't measure, for example, the big mental health impacts that COVID has had on young people either. I think the next step for us is to better understand why that's happened. The other thing to mention, though, Michael, and this is really terrific news, we've been doing NAPLAN now for 14 years. What it shows is that for primary school kids, the reading skills of primary school students today is about a year ahead of the reading skills of primary school students 14 years ago. So we've seen massive growth in the reading skills of primary school students over that period of time. It's just not translating into high school, and that's one of the things I think we need to look at. OK. You are the Education Minister. You speak to people about this every day. So yeah. What do you think are the reasons why those generally good results in primary school aren't necessarily quickly translated into secondary school outcomes? Yeah, I'm not sure. That's one of the things that I want the Australian Education Research Organisation to drill deeper into. I want to make sure we've got the National Schooling Reform Agreement that kicks off next year, the negotiations on what we need to focus on to make sure that we're getting better results. I'd like them to look at this, but I'd also, Michael, frankly, like them to look at the gap between the results of children from poor backgrounds and wealthier backgrounds. We're seeing that gap growing. As we're seeing improvements at primary school, we're still seeing that gap growing. And I don't want us to be a country where your chances in life depend on who your parents are or where you grow up or the colour of your skin, but that's where we are today. And that's where I think the work that I do with education ministers over the next 12 months really needs to focus. Speaking of the colour of your skin, what more can be done to improve educational outcomes for Indigenous students based on these results? Oh, we saw some good results there, but the fact is, let's go back to before school, Michael. The readiness of Indigenous children to start school is well below that of the general population. About 55% of 4-year-olds are ready to start school. only about 34% of Indigenous children, and that gap has got worse over the last 4 years. That gap's getting bigger, not smaller. It's one of the reasons that in the big childcare legislation that we introduced a couple of weeks ago, I made sure that there was changes to the law there, so there was a guaranteed access to 36 hours a fortnight of early education for Indigenous children. If we're serious about tackling disadvantage, you can't start at school, you've got to go way back to zero, and that's for Indigenous children and non-Indigenous children. But, you know, all of the evidence shows if you get access to good early education from 0 to 5, it can make the world of difference.
It's Suwaken, and that is a very, very tender time, and it is the formative years. It is when the foundation of your education is laid. Well, ladies and gentlemen, right now, moving on, medical professionals are calling for dedicated long-term COVID clinics.
Start time.
Jo Milios has been a physiotherapist for nearly 17 years.
This is your prostate.
But recently has noticed more patients presenting with random symptoms, months after having COVID-19.
I roughly see about 80 patients a week, generally speaking, and about 10% of them are dealing with long COVID symptoms at any one time.
Now, with the help of other medical professionals in WA, she's hoping to educate the community about the condition.
We don't really know what we're doing because it's all new, but we do know that if we stop, rest and pace, especially going back to exercise and work, we'll have much less side effects.
That advice helped Tony Jones, the captain of Australia's Hockey Masters World Cup team for men over 60, deal with his debilitating symptoms following his infection earlier this year.
It's taken a long time, a lot of antibiotics, lots of doctor's visits and seeing specialists and other people just to try and work out why this keeps happening and why you still can't just recover from it.
We're going to now look at the vision.
But with thousands of people expected to develop the condition, sufferers say more action is needed.
We can either get on the front foot for this and be proactive and manage the problem as it comes in, or we can be reactive to it.
GPs also want more clarity.
The more we know about it, the better we can actually manage the condition, and better informed the patients are as well, because you want to be able to provide the right information to patients.
Some health professionals believe a dedicated long COVID clinic is the answer.
We have, I believe, a $6 billion profit margin once again here in Western Australia, and it would be good if some of the monies could be allocated to exactly that type of thing.
The health department intends...
So money put in the right place, and of course that would go a long way, because that is an area of growing concern, and COVID-19 is here to stay, and that education out into the community, I think it's a very, very, very good thing. Well, right now going to Darwin, where there are concerns that Darwin is not prepared for single-use plastic ban. Well, at least not yet.
The ban was meant to slow the tide of single-use plastics from Darwin's popular markets to the city's landfill. More than 4 years on, some are still looking for solutions, partly because some alternative products can't withstand the intense heat.
We brought in PLA lids, the appropriate lids in from overseas, and we lost probably 120,000 of them, so they were thrown away, a few $1,000s. Then the lids, the straws, they crack.
Others fear single-use plastics have crept back in. So the ABC took a number of food containers to a waste specialist who said some of them are still conventional plastics that take hundreds of years to break down.
This, for example, is made of cardboard, but the lining could be standard plastic.
Other materials break down naturally, but some need a composting facility that Darwin still doesn't have.
For example, there are studies that show that in anaerobic environment, these products biodegrade, releasing a methane, which is 30 times more potent than carbon monoxide.
That's probably our biggest frustration, is that it'll all go to landfill anyway.
Single-use plastics across the entire Northern Territory will be banned under a government policy due to be brought in 3 years' time. But some people say there's a long and difficult road ahead.
The main challenge might be that we might not be ready, because 2025 is not so far away.
The council says it's taking an educational approach to compliance with the ban.
Where there might be excess plastic stock that people are trying to get rid of, or people getting more information about the types of other alternatives that are available to them.
alternatives that are available, as we know, the India Day Fair that takes place in Roma Street Parklands, and they were very strict with all the conditions there. No single-use plastic, but while there are other functions and events that are taking place, and there's lots of single-use plastic that's been used. There was a function out in King George Square, where they were allowed to use plastic bottles and bottled water, while Gopia Queensland was told not, and that if you bring the water bottles in the parklands, your show could be stopped. So where do we stop? Are we ready? Are we ready yet? Or should the change be a little bit more gradual, allowing for the, it to all take place? Because, there's just so much out in circulation. You can't just go boom, stop one day. Because there are some very serious consequences, as they mentioned that they lost a lot of money, and we even here at the India Day Fair would have suffered a lot there as well. Well, ladies and gentlemen, right now moving on, let's go to the Daily India Report. There's still so much more that we'd like to touch on, but time is not on our side. Let's go to Daily India Report.
Welcome to the Daily India Report that brings you reports, interviews, features and more on India and the Indian diaspora. PM Modi dials Rishi Sonak to congratulate him and discuss the need to close the FTA deal soon.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi spoke to Britain's new Prime Minister Rishi Sonak on October 27th and discussed the need to close a balanced free trade deal between India and the UK soon. After the call, Modi tweeted, "Glad to speak to Rishi Sonak today. Congratulated him on assuming charge as UK PM. We will work together to further strengthen our comprehensive strategic partnership. We also agreed on the importance of early conclusion of a comprehensive and balanced FTA." Sonak also tweeted, "Thank you Prime Minister Narendra Modi for your kind words as I get started in my new role. The UK and India share so much. I am excited about what our two great democracies can achieve as we deepen our security, defence and economic partnership in the months and years ahead." Britain's Foreign Secretary James Cleverly is also coming to India on October 28th to hold talks with External Affairs Minister S. Shankar. The two will discuss strengthening diplomatic ties. Britain has completed the majority of sections of the free trade agreement with India, but will only sign off on the deal once happy that it is fair and reciprocal. The UK government had previously said it wanted to complete the deal by Diwali, a deadline which passed earlier this week. UK's controversial Home Secretary Suella Braverman, an Indian origin leader and hardline Brexiteer who had opposed a more generous visa policy for immigrants, has come out in support of the India-Britain FTA in what is being seen as an attempt to diffuse tensions over her policy stance.
Rajnath Singh says the development journey of J&K will complete only after reaching Gilgit-Baltistan.
India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh on October 27 said that the Modi government's development journey in the Union territories of Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh has only begun and its northward journey will be complete after reaching Gilgit-Baltistan. He referred to the Indian Parliament's resolution to get vacated from Pakistan India's illegally occupied territories in the region. Singh was speaking at an event marking the 75th anniversary of Shaurya Divas, which commemorates the landing of Indian troops at Srinagar Airport on October 27, 1947, to evict Pakistan-backed tribesmen from the valley a day after Maharaja Hari Singh signed the instrument of accession with India. He also accused Pakistan of committing atrocities against the people in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. He added, "The dream of Acharya Shankaracharya and Vallabhbhai Patel will be fulfilled and the refugees of 1947 will get justice and will get back their land. The day isn't far away when this mandate will also get fulfilled." Home to roughly 90 million people, Gilgit-Baltistan forms the northern edge of POK and is its largest province. Singh accused Pakistan of depriving the people of POK of basic rights. "The pain of the people of POK also troubles us and not just them. I want to ask Pakistan what rights have been given to people who live in the regions that are under its forcible occupation," he asked. Pakistan has on several occasions criticized India over alleged human rights violations in the alley. Islamabad also opposed the effective abrogation of Article 370, which accorded special status to the erstwhile state.
External Affairs Minister Shankar to visit Moscow to discuss bilateral relations and the international agenda.
Indian External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Shankar will be making his first visit to Moscow in November since the outbreak of the Russia-Ukraine war and will hold talks with his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov. The ministers will discuss the current state of bilateral relations and the international agenda. Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova said Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov will have talks with External Affairs Minister of India S. Shankar on November 8th in Moscow. There, however, is no official announcement from India's Ministry of External Affairs on the proposed visit of Shankar. Since the Ukraine conflict began in February this year, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has spoken to Russian President Vladimir Putin as well as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky a number of times. In a phone conversation with Zelensky earlier this month, Modi had said that there can be no military solution and that India is ready to contribute to any peace efforts. At a bilateral meeting with Putin in the Uzbek city of Samarkand on September 16th, he told Putin that today's era is not of war. India notably has been maintaining that the crisis must be resolved through diplomacy and dialogue.
Modi moots the idea of one nation, one police uniform in session with Home Ministers of States via video conferencing.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has emphasized that law and order is states' responsibility, but these are linked to the unity and integrity of the nation too. Addressing the Chintan Shivir of Home Ministers of States via video conferencing on October 28th, Modi said that the ongoing brainstorming session at Surajkund in Haryana is an excellent example of cooperative federalism. States can learn from each other, take inspiration from each other and work together for the betterment of the country. This is the sentiment of the Constitution and our duty towards our citizens, he said. He also floated the idea of one nation, one police uniform, saying states or union territories should discuss if this is possible. The Prime Minister noted that the law and order is not restricted to a state as crime is turning interstate and international. Referring to the use of technology by criminals from beyond the border, PM Modi also underlined the need for states and central law enforcement agencies to coordinate. As long as there is no equal response from police and central agencies on these issues, and if all states do not come together to fight these, then it would be impossible to face them, he added. The Chief Ministers of 8 states and Home Ministers and Deputy Chief Ministers of 16 states gathered at the event, which was chaired by Union Home Minister Amit Shah.
India gives approval for the environmental release of indigenous, genetically modified and high-yielding mustard hybrids.
India has cleared the environmental release of indigenous, genetically modified and high-yielding mustard hybrids, paving the way for commercial production of GM mustard seeds that the farmers may hope to get after a couple of years. The Genetic Engineering Appraisal Committee, India's GM regulator under the Union Environment Ministry, has issued permits to the developer, the Centre for Genetic Manipulation of Crop Plants under Delhi University, following years of deliberations and multiple screenings by various expert committees. The GEAC has approved the release of GM mustard hybrid DMH11 for seed production besides deregulating the 2 parental lines that can be used by others to create better hybrids or parental lines under the supervision of the Indian Council of Agriculture Research. According to the permit the DU team headed by geneticist Deepak Pental received, the approval is valid for 4 years and would be renewed for 2 years at a time based on the compliance report to observe the performance of the crop as well as its impact on honeybees and other pollinators, a concern raised by environmentalists. This is the first GM food crop approved by India and may become the second genetically engineered commercial crop after BT cotton, which was given the green signal more than 2 decades ago by the Atal Bihari Vajpayee government. More than 95% of India's cotton areas cultivate BT cotton, because of which India's annual cotton production has gone up from 13 million bales in 2002 to 35 million bales in 2021.
BCCI announces equal pay for both men and women cricket team members.
In a historic move on October 27th, the Board of Control for Cricket in India announced equal pay for all centrally contracted men and women Team India cricketers. BCCI Secretary Jai Shah took to Twitter to announce the development. I am pleased to announce BCCI's first step towards tackling discrimination. We are implementing a pay equity policy for our contracted women cricketers. The match fee for both men and women cricketers will be the same as we move into a new era of gender equality in Indian cricket. He added the women cricketers will be paid the same match fee as their male counterparts. Test INR 15 lakhs, ODI INR 6 lakhs, T20I INR 3 lakhs. Pay equity was my commitment to our women cricketers and I thank the Apex Council for their support. The Indian women's team recently won the Asia Cup in Bangladesh, beating Sri Lanka in the final at Sylhet by 8 wickets. They also won India's first ever medal in cricket at the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham earlier this year. Ever since India's performance in the 2017 Women's ODI World Cup in England, where they lost to the hosts in the final, the popularity of women's cricket has seen an unprecedented rise in the country. BCCI in its last AGM in Mumbai earlier this month had also announced the first ever women's IPL next year with 5 teams.
Superstars of Hindi, Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam and Kannada cinema come together for unveiling the trailer of Samantha Ruth Prabhu's first Hindi release, Yashoda.
South Indian actress Samantha Ruth Prabhu is gearing up for her first Hindi theatrical release, Yashoda. On 27th October, the biggest superstars from across the nation joined hands to unveil the trailer of her film. The list includes Vijay Deverakonda in Telugu, Surya in Tamil, Rakshit Shetty in Kannada, Dulquer Salman in Malayalam and Varun Dhawan in Hindi. Amidst the huge buzz on the biggest female-led pan-India theatrical film Yashoda, the makers of the film left no stone unturned to hype the expectations as the trailer was unveiled nationally with some of the biggest names of the Indian entertainment industries. After the teaser release and a sneak peek announcing the launch date of the trailer, the anticipation for the trailer reveal was at an all-time high. Turning into a national sensation with the blockbuster success of her song O Antava from Pushpa and earning accolades for a remarkable performance in the much-acclaimed show The Family Man, Samantha is gearing up for her first appearance in Hindi theatres with Yashoda. Earlier, the makers of the film dropped the teaser introducing the audience to the world of Yashoda, played by Samantha, leaving everyone intrigued with the dark and thrilling backdrop of a pregnant woman fighting against all odds. Playing a gritty pregnant woman's role in this edge-of-the-set action thriller, Samantha's action stunts as Yashoda stunned everyone earlier. Releasing in 5 languages, Telugu, Tamil, Kannada, Malayalam and Hindi, Yashoda stars popular actors Varalakshmi Sarath Kumar and Unni Mukundan playing crucial roles with a strong technical crew on board with Manish Sharma for music, M. Sukumar for cinematography and Marthan K. Venkatesh as the editor. Directed by Hari and Harish, Yashoda is produced by Sivalanka Krishna Prasad under the banner of Sridevi Movies and is set to release on 11 November 2022.
యశోద ఎవరో తెలుసు కదా, ఆ కృష్ణ పరమాత్ముణ్ణి పెంచిన తల్లి.
That's all for this bulletin of the Daily India Report.
And thank you very much, Ankita, for that report. Well, of course, ladies and gentlemen, so there you are, up to date on Australian Indian radio. Well, right now we'll take a look at what's making in functions and events. As we know, a lot of functions and events took place over the weekend. So here's the upcoming ones. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's about all we have time for you today. But before we leave you, we'll give you a glimpse of what happened in the weekend. One of the functions, Ek Rangin Sam, he has a little bit of an accent from that. So there you are, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, that was from Ek Rangin Sam, proudly supported by Brisbane Indian Times and Australian Indian Radio. We'll try and bring you more proper clips because that was just taken off a live feed. Well, right now it's time to say goodbye. I hope you had a wonderful weekend, and this is going to be one big week as well. We have the Melbourne Cup coming up on Tuesday, and of course this week we will also have the launch of the Indian exhibition. We will talk a little bit more about that later in the week as well. So the Indian exhibition, which will be the official opening of that, will be on the 3rd, but the opening will be from the 2nd, and of course it's all Indian themed at the Sunnybank Multicultural Gallery. We'd like to see you all there. Well, until tomorrow, it's goodbye from us. And it's been a pleasure having your company as usual. And as we know, that during the week we have some other specialist program that will be coming up. Programs like the Real Estate Update with Usha Chandra.